Hey there YouTube, I'm Yukitsu, this is the Yukitsu Times. Welcome to my channel, welcome to a little bit of Total War Warhammer 2. So today I want to talk a little bit about Brettonians, and they're an interesting faction in this particular matchup. Now, Brettonians I don't think are necessarily super good. There's plenty of factions that are capable of dealing with them so long as they've got excellent options for taking out these kind of knights. And in particular, you're going to find the best factions against these guys are anyone with the Lore of Death, because what they tend to do is just take a shaman with the Lore of Death here, for example, put them on a chariot or whatever, it doesn't really matter, and then just basically spend every single bit of mana on the Fate of Buna. And this is going to be able to really kill a large number of their really important knights and stuff like that. So you just wait until they're entangled in there, they're taking a little bit of damage or what have you, and then you just cast that on them, and it'll do a decent job of dealing really high damage to those guys. It does cost an absolute crap ton of magic right now. 22 to cast a Fate of Buna is a huge cost, but that is still how people, I think, tend to do that. I'm kind of almost wondering if it's more mana efficient to use Spirit Leech, which is also a fairly good direct damage spell. And they're a fairly small unit, so maybe that would actually also work. Who knows? I'd have to test that out there or something, and I don't really like doing those sort of tests. But that's only because I'm lazy. So anyway, yeah, Brettonians, they don't necessarily do too well against a lot of factions. Factions which have, like, across the board cause fear or have very strong assault infantry, that's to say ones with charge, can break through their chaff mob super fast. And if you're breaking through the peasants and the spearmen at arms and the men at arms with shields and all of that stuff, even the battle pilgrims, if you're breaking through those guys super quickly, then it doesn't mean that, like, the Brettonian knights are not going to have enough time to disentangle themselves from the cavalry fight and then win the battle in the infantry fight, because if the infantry's already dead, well, now you've got a situation where the Brettonians probably have the field in terms of cavalry, but the enemy has crushed all their infantry support, and cavalry without infantry support fighting against a full infantry army will tend to lose. So there's lots of situations where these guys don't necessarily pan out amazingly, but they're very good against High Elves. For one thing, the High Elves have no really cost-effective means for cutting through all of these infantry. They just have very inexpensive, very cost-efficient infantry options here. Men-at-arms and men-at-arms with shields are great options for just tying up enemies. Men-at-arms, spearmen-at-arms with shields are also a great option for just tying up an enemy, keeping them busy. And the fact that they've got only 50 leadership really doesn't matter, because what tends to happen is you've got so many of these units that the High Elves or whatever you're fighting against are forced to engage like one unit at a time. You break that first unit after it's taken like 25% casualties. That unit rallies with 75% health, comes back into the fight and loses another 25% of its health, and then it flees again, and it does this over and over again. You're sort of cycling against like a whole bunch of these men-at-arms units, and you could find yourself fighting like 2 units of spearmen-at-arms or 2 units of men-at-arms, and they just sort of grind down High Elf units really efficiently. If you're taking lots of swordmasters, you're going to end up finding yourself like so surrounded by mobs of just random peasants that you're going to get completely bogged down by that. And while that's happening, they're going to have like a dozen spearmen assisting in the cavalry fight that's already heavily in the favor of the Brettonians. So while they'll cut through those peasants really quickly with the swordmasters, they've got so many peasants that they have to cut through to equal their cost. Like 250 for a spearman at arms, it's 5 of those for 1 unit of swordmasters. And the swordmasters can kill 5 units of the spearmen or at arms here. Pretty much if you sort of fight them one at a time or whatever. But the reality is that those spearmen are going to sort of bog you down a little bit, but more importantly, other ones are going to go around, get that calf fight, makes the Grail Knights win by a larger margin, and then your Grail Knights are running into the back of your Swordmasters, and at that point it's game over for the Swordmasters. And that's really where the strength of the Brettonians lies. It's supposed to be their cavalry, and if their cavalry is capable of doing the support, clearing away the support elements and getting those rear charges while your battle lines are still intact as Brettonia, that's where you're going to win the fights. That's where you're going to be able to win and do some really good work against your opponent there. If you are forced to fight against an infantry line, if you're forced to stick it into a fight there with these guys, then it's really quite difficult. For High Elves in particular, Grail Knights are an incredible unit. The bonus versus larger 12 there, and the very good all-around stats, the fact that they got magic attacks, and the fact that they've got this physical resistance, all that combined makes them really difficult to kill when you're playing as the High Elves. There's tons of infantry options that the High Elves have that are theoretically pretty good at killing Cav, but they're the ones that actually can do it, like the ones that you would actually want to take to do that, are the Phoenix Guard, and they are way too expensive for that role. against Bretonians. You can't really afford to take the Phoenix Guard in any significant numbers, so that doesn't really work out too well. You could potentially use the Sisters of Averlorn, but it's hard to defend these guys when, like I said, the Bretonians will dominate the field with numbers. They will dominate the field with cavalry. And when they've got both numbers and they've got higher quality and larger numbers of cavalry, you're going to have a really bad time defending these guys. So yeah, let's take a quick look at the game that I've got here. This is a really quite close one, actually, and I don't think that it's going to be the most definitive sort of guide to beating Brettonia as the High Elves. But basically, what I've been finding is that High Elves can sort of dominate the air. Here we can see that my opponent has opted for the Knights of the Lion-Hearted, Knights Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis sort of thing here. And like, you can take the Knights of the Lion-Hearted as a replacement for a second unit of Grail Knights, because they operate very, very similarly to one another, especially against High Elves. You don't necessarily need that second unit of Grail Knights. It is extremely powerful, but the Knights of the Fleur-de-Lis are definitely going to be able to sort of hold their own there. So my opponent has taken 2 Paladins. I think that might be the only mistake he's actually made, in the fact that he hasn't got any archers. I would replace the Paladins with some archers there. But we're going to be able to sort of get into a protracted fight here. So what I've done for my army is I've just taken a box, basically. And it's a bit of a loose formation box, but we've got a little bit of archers, and we've got the Lothian Sea Guard, which are, of course, capable of assisting in a ranged fight as well as anti-cavalry. More importantly, though, I've been finding that against the Bretonians, you can go ahead and just take 2 dragons. They're rarely going to take air, despite the fact that they have good air options against High Elves, simply because High Elven air is some of the best in the game, capable of dominating them, and more importantly, High Elven counters to air are some of the best in the game. So we managed to pick off 1 single Grail Knight with that, which is gross. In the meantime, though, I'm actually sending my Moondragon around, and we're going to go ahead and start breathing on this Trebuchet. I didn't realize he'd rotated the Trebuchet to try and fire at my dragons and stuff like that, but at this point in time, we've knocked them down to 3 Grail Knights, which, you know, okay, that's all great and stuff like that. He's firing his Trebuchet at the wrong target here. Actually, he doesn't have a Blessed Field Trebuchet, it's a regular Field Trebuchet, so it doesn't really matter. But in any event, we're trying to pick off a couple of these Grail Knights, and every one that we actually kill is a huge loss for him. Same with these Knights of the Lion-Hearted. These guys are just a very expensive, very powerful unit there, and we've already killed one of them, just chasing after them with our general here. In the meantime, though, I'm just waiting for my Moondragon, and this is why he should have taken some archers, although that just changes the amount of micro, and I would have taken a little bit of damage, so it would have been a really good idea for him to take that. In the meantime, though, Mage, I realize it's, you know, actually, I better juke around this side. He's coming around for the long flank, which is, you know, fine, whatever. But in any event, yeah, we're just trying to pick away at these guys, chasing them away. We've managed to kill off a couple of these guys with our Princess here. What I should have done is actually just charge the Fan Enchantress here, but at the same time, he might have brought the cavalry around, and honestly, I wouldn't have been able to kill her before something weird happened. Archer fire coming in on the peasant mob, and just getting them to go away at this point in time would be okay, although for some reason a ton of my shots are missing, and I wasn't really entirely sure why that was. I end up chasing after these guys anyway. Just causing as much damage as possible as Grail Knights is really a priority for me. The Fan Enchantress is starting to take some arrow fire, if I recall correctly. Or she will soon, if I recall. For some reason, he charges her straight into my unit of spearmen here. She does kill a couple of them, and then she does start taking some fire there, and I do hit her as well with the Noble, so that's going to be a decent amount of damage. She's going to try and draw the Noble in there. We do manage to scare away the Field Trebuchet, which is nice. Still chasing away at these guys. I don't know why I've target prioritized the hero there. I didn't actually manually do that, it just sort of happened. Ended up getting stuck in the Foot Squires, which I didn't want, which is not great. Managed to get a hit on the Knight Errants, only killing 2 of them, which is still pretty okay. Spreading our Spearmen, though, out to intercept here. Running away from the Paladin with our Mage, don't want to get in on that. And at this point in time, yeah, we're just sort of hoping for the best, really. He's charging in with things like Foot Squires, he's charging in with quite a few things that are quite competent in terms of dealing damage to us, and he's got a really nice flank and surround on this side here. But at the same time, he is taking quite a lot of damage here. Fan Enchantress, I'm going to try and go for a swoop in with the dragon, and if for some reason I cancel it at the last minute and instead send it towards these infantry here. Noble at this point in time has come back around and is charging into the defenders of Fleur-de-Lis to help with that. For some reason my archers were running away. I think there was something going on there. I managed to get a really good breath on those Foot Squires though. And Foot Squires, while they're quite cost efficient. I still think that they're a good infantry unit, just in terms of cost effectiveness. They're not a top tier one, so them losing those numbers there. I should really have charged the Moondragon in earlier, but I was busy microing stuff over here, which was really bad for me there. Seeing Earthblood coming down from my opponent there is pretty bad as well. Archers, Spearmen fighting back here against these men-at-arms. I'm trying to run my archers away, but that's not working out too well. Noble over here, still managing to get some kills against these knights, which is great. Defenders of the Third League are a little bit easier for me to kill, so that's kind of one of my targets of priority there. And at this point in time, I just charged my princess straight into the mob of stuff over here. And honestly, even though it's Knights of the Lionhearted, it's Paladin, it's Grail Knights, it's kind of assistance I need in this fight to sort of turn it in my favor at all. We got the 2 units of spears here, and he's kind of caught in it at this point in time. And he is trying to fight it out as best as he can, but, you know, it's not necessarily going to have to go his way. Earthblood here coming in, extended overcast there. Another paladin coming in, and this is where the difference between like paladins and nobles really sort of shows. He didn't deal that much damage on that charge against my princess, despite everything. Firing into the back of the paladin, I should not be firing at him. I should be firing at those knight errants or those knights of the Lionhearted more particularly. But it is as it is. Moondragon also should be getting out of here, fighting the Fey Enchantress pretty soon, if I recall correctly. But yeah, like, my opponent's just doing the smart thing. He's cycle charging, he's like mobbed my infantry, and there's not a whole lot I can do to sort of stop that formation-wise. At this point I am, though, charging my Moondragon into the Fey Enchantress there, and the Moondragon is going to be able to deal some pretty good damage. We're losing one of our units to Spear Elves, but that's fine. We've still got Lotus Guard here. He's actually using some sort of... I think that actually might just be a natural aura from the Fey Enchantress or something, but either way. Yeah, we're still holding in here. Our mage somehow gets wrecked here, so he's forced to sort of flee out. He's blocked his own charge against my general there with his knight errant, so they don't really do any damage on that charge. And at this point in time, you know, we're sort of doing okay. We're trying to get that peasant mob out. I should be firing at these knight errants though. Again. Peasant mob, I probably could actually just turn and fight them with my archers and win that, but I should really be fighting these guys, firing at those guys. Over here, we're just in a wreck here, but at this point in time, like, his general's at low health. He's been using a lot of Overcast or Earthbloods, and realistically speaking, like, we've been able to deal a lot of damage to these knights because they've been forced into staying in combat against us. And the reason that I've been able to force him into combat here is because of the noble and because of the dragon. And if he tries to pull out against those, he'll actually take some damage. I should be charging this guy in here way earlier. I should be much more active with this Moondragon, honestly. Managed to get a nice Soul Blight there, which is pretty good. Still getting pounded by like quite a lot of cavalry. Most of them are just depleted to nothing at this point in time, finally. But I do need to do something to help my princess out here. In the end, I decided to send my Moondragon off over this way, and we're charging the mage into the Grail Relic. Honestly, the Grail Relic as a support unit is not actually that relevant as far as this goes. But the Noble is really doing his work here. He's got 33 kills against mostly like Grail Knights and stuff like that. My general's retreating here, but that's really not too big a deal. I do need to start firing at these Grail Knights though. At this point, my Noble kind of gets spread out from the Spearman, and since he's kind of getting isolated, he does get killed here basically. Pretty badly. Like, the Paladin mixed with the Knights of the Lionhearted, that combination is just too much for him. But we do gain our general back, and with that, we're able to sort of keep spamming healing spells against it. And I'm going to try and go hunt down this general at this point in time, Fey Enchantress. I've still got a little bit of ammunition left, so we're going to be able to get some of that back there. Getting some nice shots against these Knights of the Lionhearted. We're getting a really decent breath weapon against the Paladin, although it does kill a lot of our own dudes. Well, not a lot of our own dudes, actually. It's a pretty weak unit to begin with. So at this stage, like, he's taken... I've managed to get one more good charge against the Fey Enchantress there with my Noble. Dealt it actually a pretty good amount of damage, a couple hundred points of damage there. And at this point, I've actually chucked one of my shots against the Fey Enchantress. We're actually going to see also a Spirit Bolt against the Fey Enchantress. Spirit Blight, which is going to actually ding her a little bit. So she's down to 493 health. And at this point in time, I can actually hunt her down and kill her. So I actually try and juke out of there with my High Mage, because if my High Mage actually charges her, she's dead. And at this point in time, there's a few enough Brettonian units that all I have to do is kill their general and I'll win the game. Because that's sort of the thing about Brettonia. If you kill their general too early when they have too many units on the field, especially their elite units, their knights and stuff like that, then they're not actually going to retreat from the battle. They're going to be fine. What ends up happening is that all those units that would normally be quite scary are going to be able to instead just rally up the rest of the troops. Here, I'm still trying to charge out with the High Mage. I'm trying to just get out of there. I can actually kill the Fang Chancellors with my High Mage, and I'm just chasing after with the Princess as well. We got Foe Seeker active, so I'm going to be catching up a little bit. I got a couple arrows. What's going to end up happening instead is I run out of arrows just as I get this this leadership down below threshold, so she starts running, which is great. We still got this white moon, we've still got the Moon Dragon as well, and that's really what sort of makes it so that this game is worth still playing. But what's going to happen here is I know I can kill her with the High Mage, so I just chase with the High Mage, and if she ends up off field, then I win. If she doesn't end up off field, it's very likely that he's not going to have the micro to stop her from getting charged by the High Mage. So the High Mage actually sees her off and just makes sure she doesn't rally, and at this point in time, look at this, the entire army just finishes breaking because their general was that important for their morale. So this is kind of what you have to do. You have to really whittle down and weaken all of their army to the point where their morale is not great. You have to get rid of some of their key units, and all of this is very difficult. This is what makes this match so hard. But having 2 dragons really works well in this, because it can keep those units shattered much, much faster before they can whittle your units down as badly. It bought me a lot of time for my units to sort of stick out the fight a lot longer, but look how pathetic the Spearmen are. 70 kills there, 23 kills there, 26, 37, 35, 3. They're fighting men-at-arms with shields. This is a 325-point unit. This has 66 kills. This is 44 kills. This is 53 kills. These guys are fighting 500-point spearmen. There's something clearly wrong with the way that these guys perform in these sorts of situations. So yeah, I don't know what there is about that. Like, these guys, I understand. Like, these guys can get in against the spearmen, and that's what they're supposed to be killing. They're supposed to be killing cheap blocker infantry. But the fact that they're able to do that with the men-at-arms with shields is something is wrong with that. Like, it wasn't the ones that were in the fights with the cavalry getting some of the kills or stealing some of the kills. The cavalry were getting blocked by a couple specific units of my infantry here. In particular, I know it was that one, and I know it was that one. We're blocking a lot of the cavalry, and this one was also blocking quite a bit of the cavalry, although it ended up fighting against the peasant mob as well. But yeah, like, there's definitely something wrong with the way that works there in terms of these guys' stats. And I'm not really sure necessarily what can be done to fix that, but they do really poorly against anybody that can bring significant numbers. Like, this is not untypical for what you would see if they were up against bleak swords, or if you're up against like orc boys or anything like that. It's just these guys are pathetic. So yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on that. But anyway, hope you found this video enjoyable. Remember, if you're playing as Elves and you're up against Brettonia, dragons, not dragon princes, actual dragons, are one of the big things that you should be taking to help you swing that fight in your favor. But in any event, hope you found this one enjoyable, and of course, as always, hope to see you guys all next time.